Well, hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. I am your host, DBJ, and all of you are the co hosts on this channel as we talk about all things geeky and tabletop RPG related. Thank you very much for being here. We are doing, I'm generally calling it a Monster Mayhem series where we talk about, where we get to talk about monsters and adversaries, and this spawned something in me from some conversations that you guys were having, and I thought we would talk about like monster motivations and origins and some interesting things we can pull from them. Some a little silly, like yesterday I came back from vacation. I was like, how many vacations do we ever see in our tabletop RPG games, even from our like bad guys or PCs even and whatnot? But yeah, glad to be back, and I'm glad you guys are here as well. Hey, what's going on? Um, yeah, I hear you. Yeah, it's 5 a.m. and I'm ready for some mayhem. um, I think you might have had a little bit too much caffeine already. I do agree with you there, sir. Uh, okay, so this time we're going to talk about dreams and nightmares, and the thumbnail is a scene from the animated series. I believe it was Justice League Unlimited. It may have been one of the Superman stories. I really, actually, honestly, don't remember. Um, thanks, Mike. Thank you so much for that. Now, one of the things, because I'm gonna show this to you, is I pulled that image from a classic story from comic book lore, and you're going to understand where the dreams and nightmares come from. And it is an old story. Let's see if I pull a little bit of the image here. There's some images here in the background, and you'll see Superman and whatnot. And there is a flower on Superman's chest, known as the Black Mercy. And this one issue comic, is legendary in its origins. So, if I can give you a little bit of a background on this and what spawned this idea about dreams and nightmares, this story was called "For the Man Who Has Everything," and apparently it was Superman's birthday. Now, this issue of the comic book was written by Alan Moore, of the legendary Alan Moore of Watchmen and such, and it was actually inked by Dan Gibbons, which I believe also helped do the classic inks for the Watchmen comic book. Back then, they were doing stories for. This was at the time when Superman was literally at the height of his powers. They made a reference of this is back when Superman could juggle planets and bathe in the corona of the sun and things like that. But this particular issue, and it was just one issue of a comic book, and as a child, I remember reading it, and it was one of the few times I've ever seen Batman shook and Superman pissed, like murderously pissed. And the Black Mercy was introduced in this one comic. Superman's having a birthday at the Fortress of Solitude. And for some odd reason, we don't really figure it out, that one of Superman's arch nemesis, Mongol, appears, and Superman opens up a box, and the flower adheres to his chest. And suddenly he goes into a phantasmagoria. He goes into a dream state in which Krypton doesn't die. And we get to see both the physical actions of what's going on with our main heroes, Wonder Woman and Batman and Robin, fighting against Mongol, but it's placed against this idea of what would the dream image be for Superman? What if Krypton didn't explode? And we get to play out young Kal-El's life as he's growing older and becoming an adult and living on Krypton, and what that life would be like. And it's kind of a blend of his life on Krypton, plus a little bit of blend of Smallville, because Lois Lane and Lana Lang kind of appear there in an amalgam of a particular thing, and he has a child, and he doesn't want to get ripped away during the story. The flower is invading his body, and he doesn't want to get ripped away from this pleasurable dream. Of course, in the story, they actually rip the flower, they remove it from his body, and now Superman's on a murderous rampage to beat the hell out of Mongol. And the flower then attaches to Batman, and then you get to see Batman, where, although a shorter storyline, in this one, instead of Batman's parents dying in the alley, uh, Bruce Wayne's dad beats the hell out of Joe Chill, who is the one that murdered his parents, and we get to see that part of the storyline as well. And it's a pretty, it is an iconic issue back in 1985, I believe. And yeah, yeah, oh yeah, like Mike Gould mentions, it says, yeah, thanks to Comic Pop and Comic Explain, I'm well versed with that issue. Yeah, it is absolutely a an iconic. Um, it's a bit of an iconic. It's almost hard to explain how one single issue of a comic has become legendary if you are a comic book reader. Yeah, the TV show. Yeah, Mike Gould says, I know I'm off topic, but his dream came true in a way. He married Lois and had a son. And the latest television show, Superman and Lois, is an example of that, where it kind of came true. Well, he's still having some issues with that one, at least the television version of it, but it's pretty iconic. And the reason why I bring that up is because um, in comic books, especially because this kind of ties into yesterday, where we know that the vacation episode in television or in a book or in a comic book or something is usually a one-off, and this was one of those one-offs, right? It had a complete beginning, middle, and end, and it kind of showed us this is a classic story with heroes, and we've seen this done before in other medium, where you dangle what could have been in front of your heroes, and then unfortunately they have to give up that dream, and that dream turns into a nightmare, and then they have to go back to, yeah, this isn't the kind of thing that can ever really happen, because they're on a mission to be the good guys and whatnot. And I think in our context, because we're talking about monster mayhem here, where if you have a good set of player characters who, again, don't just want to be murderous and whatnot, to dangle the could have beens and would have beens, especially if your players are murder hobos, and then they get a chance to either like psychically or in another pocket dimension or through illusions or through monsters that through a description of how a monster is able to attack or besiege the player characters by, instead of just a psychic blast, it does a bunch of rolling dice and doing some damage. Maybe there is this idea that a ghost or a banshee or some other kinds of psychic powered creatures like Illithids or Githyanki or something like that are able to. The effect is making the players remember what it would have been like if their village wasn't destroyed by that goblinoid horde or something, or that player never did make that pact with a fiendish, a fiendish being, and they became a warlock, and what their lives would be like. And I think that'd be kind of cool, just even as a one-off or as a way to portray an inner turmoil at the table so that the other players can, air quotes, see it, even though the other characters don't see it. And that when Billy Badass, the warlock, is like, you know what, outwardly would never admit that they should have never made a pact with a fiendish creature, but inwardly that's how they're being attacked. That's how we're describing those attacks. I think that's a pretty awesome way to go about it. We'll also talk about other things about like dreams and nightmares made real, but I thought that would be this is the first thing that came to mind. This iconic one issue comic book that just became legendary. It also shows the brilliance of Alan Moore, despite the fact that he's kind of an a-hole. Um, um, Mike says, more on topic, with regard to dreams and nightmares relating to monsters, those creatures that possess psychic attacks could create psychic scars or nightmares. I love that. I like the idea even of, yes, I know I'm going to lay on hands or healing word or cure something, but what does that look like when those scars are healed? Maybe a player kind of doesn't want those scars to leave because the idea that maybe had a choice been different, they lived in a better life, and that's kind of how it's represented by the loss of the hit points and whatnot, as opposed to um, being hit with arrows and scarred and beaten to death and then knocked out and going to 0 hit points. Maybe the player goes into a catatonic state where they really wished they don't want to leave that state, and when they come back with 1 hit point or whatever, it's like they have to leave that family that they now know they'll never have or something. And that I don't know. I think that just makes for a greater story. No numerical changes, but just a narrative change, and I like that a lot. Yep. Michael even says, perhaps maintain limited telepathy, maybe with that creature, or almost like a psychic resonance with something like that. I love that. Um, I love that a lot. A mind flayer that successfully damages an intelligent foe might be able to taunt or generate nightmares in that creature, and I would allow that, even to go so far as to like allow that player, or somehow they're like tethered to each other, maybe not necessarily sensing each other, like triangulating where their locations are at, but to almost an unconscious exchanging of ideas or nightmares or something like that. I love that. I love that. That's a good way to make monsters appear. Mike Gould mentioning that nightmares that get more real the closer the mind flayer gets, and that's we're talking about monster mayhem. So the idea that your fears become real in the world, and not necessarily like in 1d4 rounds, a monstrous creature will just somehow attack you. Although you could do that, but this might be. I like the idea that for players who are engaging in your world, this is a good way to have an origin for a lot of the monsters that might exist. I've always mentioned C.S. Friedman, a writer, made a whole fantasy series about space colonists that landed on a planet, and and something on that planet caused their fears to become real, and the more people that responded to and suffered fear from the creatures out there made those other creatures real. So your fear of a vampire that I see made that more real. And that was their example for having fantasy creatures to exist in the first place. And I like that idea. I mean, imagine a village being besieged by a dragon, and it's not because a giant dragon lives out there in the mountain or something, but they keep getting besieged by a dragon because of their own nightmares and fears. Or maybe there's a small child that's like with a dirty stuffed animal, and they're dragging in the mud with a little sadistic look in their eye, who can't seem to sleep because every time they sleep they have nightmares, and those nightmares make monsters attack the city over and over again. A lot of stories like that. I like that idea. So anyway, I'm sorry, going back into some of the comments. Michael mentions a ghost that possessed a target might give that target fractured memories of the ghost's past life even after the ghost is destroyed. And it also, what a great way to info dump on your players. A ghost that possesses a player character, even if the ghost fails in the possession die roll wise, maybe they leave a fragment behind of some bit of information. The player now has a fragment of memory that they're trying to uncover, and they're getting like flashes of like a map and a monolith and a dimensional aperture and an NPC handing over money or something. Um, uh, any number of those things would be awesome. And then Deadman even brings up, you could also use that for sorcerers, like the sorcerer in Conan. Oh yeah, absolutely. Where you, the player, this doesn't have to be reserved for literally the warlock class. I'm just bringing that up, but um, as Dead Man brings up, like the sorcerer from Conan, Michael brings up, warlocks and clerics, paladins and druids having like a dream nightmare sequence when maybe they talk to their I'm going to call them a patron or their connection or even enemies of what they worship. Clerics of Apollo in the sun or something might be enemies of shadowy monsters or whatever. They might have an interaction with their enemies and whatnot. Paladins, of course, are classically known for fighting evil, and they might have an interaction with a Fey Lord or something like that in their mind, like, I'll get you, or you represent someone that I wish dead, and I'm going to kill them and all their kind or whatnot. And so you can even have some social interactions on a mental level in these dreamscapes and whatnot. Yep. Going back into for our co-host here. Michael says a clever PC illusionist would generate phantasmal killers from these nightmares and then turn them back on the mind flayer. Ooh, phantasmal killer and a number we know that the School of Magic of Illusion, which we did talk about all the illusion schools previously. That was 8 long days. The idea that illusions made real, phantasmal killers. It would be awesome for a player to describe what a phantasmal killer would look like based solely on each victim's version of what that phantasm would be for themselves, right? Like, if someone is afraid of heights, what would that look like? Would they get snatched into the air by a shadowy creature and dropped from a great height? Or would they just fall down into an endless pit? Or would they keep constantly standing on the edge of a cliff and falling and then passing out and then waking up again to fall yet again or something? Or maybe their body lights on fire and no one sees them on fire, of course. Or maybe people do see the fire, but it's not hot to them, but they're just like, I'm burning, mother, father, that kind of thing. Yep, I agree with Mike there on that one. Mind Flayer nightmares might be an aberrant mind sorcerer's origin. Wayne brings up assume was this connected to another comment? Okay, assume save versus is involved. Could a critical fail mean the new state of mind is permanent until the PCs find a way to help restore their bud, say high level priest heal, a wish, etc. As an idea, I like the idea of a critical fail. We often I know in the rules, critical success and fail for like skills and saves isn't a thing. It's kind of reserved basically for combat, but I like critical fails and save. I mean, I like critical successes and failures along the entire D20 roll because then I think there's story ideas in there. And a critical fail on a save against like a psychic attack or a save versus kind of thing. I agree. I'm liking that, and I think you could even air quote grant a PC a bonus or a favor or a boon of some sort and still punish them for the critical fail, right? Like imagine the player is besieged by nightmares this entire time, or they get a something when their character permanently is changed. Like, we have bonds, flaws, ideals, things like that. Change one of those permanently until it is cured, fixed, resolved, or whatnot. I love that idea. I absolutely love that. And but you don't get that rules is written, but I think at the table, I love it. I love it a lot. Yeah, Mike Gould says an intellect devourer, which I didn't mean to do. Shit. There we go. Sorry about that. Intellect devourer might create the same fractured memory dump upon a failed possession. Intellect devourers, ghosts. What are some other psychic? Most of the aberrants, aboleths, specters, Nothics. Oh man, there's a ton of them out there. Heck, any enchantment casting wizardry out there as well. That kind of stuff. Absolutely. Um, ooh, Dead Man brings up the Michael Crichton novel Sphere did this with a high tech MacGuffin. It sure did. I like that movie, Sphere. If you guys don't know the movie Sphere, deep sea divers find an ancient artifact they believe is from an alien species. They go inside of the ship. The ship is actually designed by and made by Earthlings. I believe they even find like an American flag on it or something, and but a starship from the far future. Of course, they apparently may have found this sphere, and they are unsure how it works. But at the end of the movie, spoiler alert, it it physically creates the subconscious ideals of the people that are interacting with it, be it a dream or a nightmare. And ultimately, they decide that it's too dangerous to reveal to humanity, because if everybody got a chance to have their subconscious fear, desire, wants, or whatever come real, it would destroy the earth. And so, of course, during the entire movie, strange things are happening. Like someone's being attacked by snakes, and someone thinks that they're in their room, but then they appear somewhere else on the ship, and all this kind of stuff. They're hearing voices and whatnot. And I like the idea of like because the sphere is a MacGuffin, right? Like Dead Man points out, and what a great MacGuffin to use in your game. Like maybe the sphere appears in a small town, and the people are wondering what is it and where is it, and a small child walks up to it and touches it, and then nothing happens. But later on, the city is overrun by rats because the kid's afraid of what's under the bed, but there's not really rats. Maybe they're like were rats or something, or they're shadow beasts or whatever. And then slowly, the lady that loves her plants, and everybody thinks that all your plants just bring around insects and bugs and stuff like that. We hate them, and maybe plants start growing out of control and they start walking around and attacking people and whatnot. And that would be a great way for the players to like, why is all this happening? This uh, chaos happening in this small town where none of it's related, and then you realize there is a relationship. It's not a physical relationship; it's a mental relationship. Oh man. Oh, Deadman says they found the MacGuffin because the ship it was on was cutting across Atlantic cable. Hmm. That's another story that they could have delved into about internet lines and Atlantic cables. I forgot about that. I forgot how they found it or why it was there, but they were like, but I like the intellectual referencing in that movie, because they were like, why is this ship designed for human beings? It's got railings and doors and things, and I was like, yep, absolutely. People don't really ask about that. I thought I hit on that. Mike says, I believe that Wayne was referring to the memory dump affecting personality of the target. Oh yeah, absolutely. A critical fail from a psychic attack and getting some sort of like um, memories from the attacker, or something like an intellect devourer might have a Rolodex. And I don't know if any of you young people know what a Rolodex is. It might have a number of personality files that randomly dump into the target, and you find out that just like 16 other people, victims that the intellect devourer like destroyed, and now the player character has these random strange and again meta info dumping, where the player might be player the character might be motivated to fulfill some of the personality that the player now has a reason to wander around the world. Like maybe Billy Badass was has the memories of a young girl that was betrothed to her love, and now that Billy Badass is like, I don't know why I want to see this dude and tell him that his lost love is okay, but I think I'm going to go find this person. And then also for people who want to engage in to changing their identity, this might be a new way of doing it as well. I hear you, Wayne. It's like, is anyone here young enough not to have had a Rolodex? Young people are like, Rolodex? What's that? Is that a new app? I bet it is. There is one like that. So, uh, oh yeah, yeah, you're right. You're so right. Mike says, perhaps monsters, like you mentioned, with energy drain, like white specters, wraiths, etc., replace positive memories with the negative memories of the monster. Ooh, maybe the player starts behaving unconsciously in a manner related to the monster. Ooh, I like that. Um, and again, like I said, a great way to info dump. A great way for players to, especially a player who, listen, a lot of us out there are we get ourselves a new rule book. Xanathar's Guide came out. A bunch of people want to make new characters. We have Tasha's Cauldron comes out. People want to make new characters and whatnot. And if you have someone who gets really bored with their characters' motivations and pathway, this is actually kind of a great way and an excuse for a player to go like, here's why my character's personality changed, and maybe even during character development, they get the fourth level and the player's like, can I pick some other stuff for my character? And everyone's like, I don't care if you change your character around. Maybe this is a reason why they're no longer a paladin and now they become um a warlock or something like that, because their brain has been so infected by those last couple of sessions where they were hit with like the level drain. Now they're like walking around with instead of the chrome armor and the flaming sword, now they're walking around in like dusty black armor and a sword that's like got black flames on it or something like that, and they don't know. The PCs are like, I think there's something different about you. And the paladins like sitting in the corner with a dark shadow over his head, like, I don't understand what you mean. Yeah, you used to be all sunshine. But yeah, absolutely. Also, Mike says, also, lycanthropy has been a conduit for bestial nightmares. Once a target is infected in the movies, yep. If a player doesn't know if they save versus disease or curse, this would be a way to convey that. Oh, hell's yes. The I love this. This is weird to say. I love slow extended saving throws for players because I listen. I understand game design. When a player is besieged by something, now like in fifth edition design, each round you get the opportunity to possibly save to come out of it. And the reason for that is because once a character gets shut down and you're like mind controlled for 1 minute or whatever, 1 minute's a long time. You're basically like folding your arms and pouting and like, this is stupid. My character shut down for, whatever. We're of an age where we remember when being paralyzed or petrified or mind controlled or something, hell, even just stuck in a web or something lasted the entire combat. But game design, they want players to still be involved, so they roll every round. But there's something insidious and fearful and beautiful about rolling each day or each hour and maybe the player doesn't even understand why they're trying to make a saving throw, but describing the hairs curling up on spiking up on the back of their neck, or their incisors growing a little bit from like lycanthropy, or waking up in a cold sweat when they go to take a long rest and the PC has to make a wisdom saving throw or whatnot, and they're like, why is my character making this again? I don't understand. What's going on? And you, as the game master, of course, you have it all written down, right? You're the dungeon master. But or even the idea of sliding the note to the player online. You can do that with like little personal chats. Like, listen, your character's been taken over. You're making saves. Just play it up. Just play it up a little bit, and then maybe even just for a player that goes along with it, give them a little something on the side. Maybe before they truly turn into a werewolf, maybe they can jump a little further. They get a little stronger. Maybe they have maybe they can sniff out that silver in the purse of their cohort and like, keep that away from me. Mike's like, my players are all too willing to turn on each other when charmed. Yeah, you got to watch out about that. players cracking their knuckles like, I'm mind controlled. Now I have to attack you. What's my most powerful attack? I'm a barbarian. I'm gonna smite you. Please, are like, really? Really? You're really gonna do that? The other origin about dreams and nightmares, and I think is really cool, is that what a great way to not just include like some of your strangely bizarre diverse monsters in your world that may not fit into this particular setting, but you can make them personal. I mean, imagine a player character besieged by I'm trying to think of something. I don't know, a chimera, an aboleth, mind flayers, strange, a gibbering mouther, whatever, something out there, and it has a penchant. It's not just there as a adversary; it's there going after you. Like it knows your name and your fears and your guilt or your desires or something. It is your it is the darkness in you made manifest, or if the players are evil, it's the light made manifest. Maybe there's a reason why you included an archon or a deva into this world that happens to be running around looking for the player character, or whenever they go to sleep, something else is running around causing havoc in the world, and the players don't understand that. Why is like every time we camp out, these villages are being attacked. Then we get there, we try to find it, we can't. We go to sleep, they get attacked again, and you realize that every time you go to sleep, this thing is either literally exiting the player characters to attack, or maybe it's like triangulating where they are, or maybe it's just a matter of the players having maybe it's just a matter of the players like they're so murderous that they're carrying around this weight that is affecting everything around them. Much it's the classic story of superheroes creating their own supervillains, and maybe players shouldn't like maybe it's the idea of uh players being the impetus for the very things that are around them that are attacking everyone. So, for example, um, first level players go out there into the world, they kill the rats in the barn. Hey, whatever, and then all of a sudden, like their adversaries are suddenly they have like hordes of rats, and they're like, why are there hordes of rats following us around? And so maybe eventually, over time, yeah, uh, it's a thing that the players, so instead of just a mindless monster that's a random thing that you opened up in a monster manual, the things it says and does are related specifically to the player characters. Like maybe a player character is playing a wizard, and a shadow demon attacks a wizard's tower and whatnot and steals a book. And it's like the player's like, I've been looking for the fireball spell. I'm like, well, the book's gone. It got stolen by a shadow demon. And they're like pissed off at the player, and they're like, I didn't do that. And like, well, the shadow demon left a message scrawled on the wall, and that's your name. So what did you do? you know, I hear you, dead man. Yes, dead man. It's like most people have their Rolodex in their phone. Yes, I, I think I'm thinking of the actual physical representation of the Rolodex, like the cardboard on the with the spindle and the whole nine. Yes, I hear you, dude. Oh man, Mike Gould says the gibbering mouthers are a great resource for a memory dump as well. Though, mind you, I'm itching to use one in a comedic way, like a sportscaster narrating the PC the sportscaster. Oh, there's the paladin again, and he smites for the third time. Wow. Well, hey there, Bob. I don't know about that, Johnny. That would just be hilarious. But in a more horrific thing, monsters that speak, like gibbering mouthers, banshees, ghosts, um, anything that uses the vicious mockery spell, things that sirens, harpies, they could all be specifically related to the player characters, spouting out their failures or the things they should have done. Maybe they haven't been home in a long time, or they have certain kinds of guilt. Maybe there's a player that's like keeps stealing things from innocent people, and they're being reminded that, remember the old man that you stole that coin from? Well, now they won't be able to pay their bills, and the evil dictator is going to beat them about the head and shoulders because they can't pay their extorted rent or something like that. Like, there are many ways that the play, especially if you have players that are really into it, where they're striking at, like, the whole idea of Scrooge. We talked about that the other day, where you know the ghosts of Christmas past, present, and future are specifically related to Scrooge. Same thing could be for the player characters. You know, the young child they were unable to save from the evil monsters, the dragon that they slayed that wants to come at them again, and whatnot. Oh, there we go, Mike. A horde of cranium rats, and the swarm of cranium rats is actually a crime boss. Oh, you mean the whole swarm of rats is one person? Oh, that's awesome. I love swarm hive. It borders on body horror, but I love that kind of stuff. Hell, I mean, someone's mage hand is really their hand that falls off their body or something like that. Yeah. The Wayne brings up the PC infected and experiencing lycanthropic dreams suddenly awakes to find he's halfway through eating the mage's familiar. Uh, what do you do? Pull the pieces out and try to stuff the half chewed flesh on top of the familiar or something. That would be pretty embarrassing, unless you had like hot sauce, in which case you get that Frank's hot sauce, you put that on anything. So yeah, you might as well just keep on going. Like, yeah, sorry about that, but it sure does taste good. Why does every familiar taste like chicken? Mike says, or an Oblex, even better. It literally eats memories. I have a greater Oblex crime boss called Forget Me Not, who deals in secrets and assassination. The Oblex is the uh, fiend level ooze that sends out tendrils that become other people. There's a bunch of other ones like that. There was one in the old classic fiend folio that was like an ooze or something that consumed a person and became that person, and they kind of they would absorb memories and whatnot. And I guess a great way of an attack on a PC, instead of a PC being harmed, the psychic damage is the creature stealing a memory or two and then getting away with it, and then that player character now understanding that maybe they have to go kill that creature to get their memories back, because the thing that's running around with their memories might be able to use that against them at some point, or maybe even buy, sell, or trade those memories. Fake creatures would be really good for something like that as well. And I could even see the player characters not only having to hunt down their own nightmares made real, but maybe they have to go after even their ancestors' nightmares that have been made real. Like, maybe this is an ongoing process that the first level player characters were spawned to join this group of monster hunters because their own ancestors created these nightmares in the first place, and society might even be changed around it to try not to make these nightmares and whatnot. Um, Wayne says, co-host Wayne says, in this vein, a hag would make a true horror show. Hidden, unknown, controlling via dream suggestion, slowly turning the PC to her will over time. Oh yeah, what is it? Yeah, the night hag. Is it the? It is the night hag that, like. I keep getting this idea of the night hag sitting on your chest, taking dreams from you. And the hag out there in the swamp, it doesn't have to be a swamp, but again, like, I love hags. I'm a big hag supporter. Like, yeah, go hags. And yeah, maybe the hag has a large brood that she's doesn't necessarily need to be a she, but that she spawned around her, and each of the monsters that you've used in your world, maybe there is a harpy and a couple of owl bears and chimera, and then you have some more lieutenant creatures like Oni or Ogre Magi and whatnot, and maybe each and every one of them are spawned from the ripped memories and nightmares from her victims, including the PCs. Like, could you imagine a PC seeing the the goatee wearing darker versions of themselves? If you guys remember, it, always back in the day, whenever a main character was evil on television, they had to have a goatee. It's so stupid, but yeah, maybe seeing the opposites of themselves might be kind of cool. That, you know what, one of the greatest things to do is to get copies of your player characters character sheets, reskin them, and then use it against them. Players hate that. I don't suggest doing that too often because you only get away with that once. But it's such a cool. It's so satisfying when the players are like, "You made them too tough." Nope, I just made them exactly like your character sheet. Yeah, Dead Man says there was the Stephen King movie with the troll that stole kids' breath while they were sleeping. There's a lot of, and I know you guys mentioned that earlier. There's a lot of folklore and fairy tales about kids and monsters. There's a ton of them. Kids in ovens, kids getting killed, kids and their breath being stolen, kids being kidnapped by the Pied Piper. Man, there's a ton of that stuff. But it's pretty dark, and you know, when you're a child, there's a lot of nightmarish things we think of that, of course, as adults, we come to realize that it's a fear. But imagine if those things are real. The thing under the bed might really be a thing from under the bed, you know? Um, yeah, Michael brings up the idea that night hags truly shape change, whereas green hags are hidden behind illusions. I ran a full hag campaign and had a hag truly affect the campaign. I love hags. Hags are like hags, Rakshasa, Ogre Magi, like they are illusion casting, shape changing, pulling the strings behind everything. Dragons are in there, kind of, but they're not really my go to because once you find out they're a dragon, it's done, right? But hags, and especially the ability to just reskin them because they don't necessarily need to be the old hag in the swamp. They but I love the corrupting effect that they have, and the idea that maybe they are, hell, a hag might literally be from the nightmare of a PC. And I like the origin of nightmares because I think it's a great um, fuel to insert something somewhere where it really doesn't make sense that it's there in the first place. Um, oh, um, Michael brings up the out of the box adventures. Madame Verspillick's Magical Wonders, a hag run magic magic shop of cursed items. We don't see too many cursed items. Yeah, Nightmare on Elm Street is a good one. uh, There's a reason why my players are paranoid. Yeah, her currency isn't gold. It's things like memories and hit dice. Yeah, I like the idea of like hags, fey creatures, fiends that buy, sell, and trade like memories. Like especially when because we're talking about nightmares. The nightmare is losing the memory, but the dream is actually having a pleasant memory that the player maybe has to give up. Um, I I heard this happened in a live play, and I cannot remember which one it was. The players were talking about the fact that one of them had a familiar, which was like a wolf or something, their best friend, and they had to give up the memory of them having had their familiar, so they lost that memory of their best friend. And it was like more, the player was like they weren't upset that it happened, but they were like, man, that was more traumatic than I thought about. And the during the campaign, they had this loss, but they couldn't realize what it was, and the player didn't have their familiar any longer. And and because the familiar was just like, hey, don't you remember me? And the player's like, why is this thing following me around? Go away. And it was like they said it was like pretty traumatic, and I was like, wow. But yeah, losing a cherished memory is pretty important. Oh man. Mike's on a roll. Mike says the half orc in the party wanted some armor. I told him the price was to pick a half. Ooh, to pick a Oh no. As in he had to give up the orc side or the other side. Yeah, yeah. That's gonna be I'm gonna do that tomorrow. I thought about that as one of the origins. And side note players, this is why we dungeon masters, we don't like it when your entire family is killed. We love family because family is a great spawn for great ideas. And when you are, let's use the half orc for example, you're half anything. Um, Heck, you could be one fifth anything if you look at like George R. R. Martin and the Targaryens and the Dragon Legacy and whatever. If you're a half orc, you're half orc, half something else, usually human. And both sides give us plenty of fuel to pull you in. Maybe the orcs think that you don't belong with them, where the orcs are like, you need to give up your human side to be with us. Maybe the humans want to cast you out, or the humans are like, hey, maybe they treat you in a certain way, and then what about your family? Like, it's the idea of like, you don't need to imagine playing a ranger whose hated enemy are goblinoids, and then you find out that you have a half-blooded sibling, right? Do you go and try to kill them, or are you like, ooh, I've been killing half of your family, half my life. I'm so sorry. you know, that's awesome to have to give up your half. So actually, that's a really great way for a player. Again, what a great way for a player to go, I don't want to be a half orc anymore. Great. Okay. We'll work it into the game. You got to give up one half. And guess what? You're going to give up not only half of your body, you're going to give up half of your memories of that part of yourself too. And you're like, uh-oh, what are they going to do with it? Lastly, I will say that I do have to get out of here a little bit early. Lastly, I will say that that making things personal, I think, is a tool that put that in your back pocket. Not just a mindless chimera flying through the air, but a chimera flying through the air who literally is calling out that player character's name that has some connection to them. Anytime you can have an enemy scrawl something on the wall that specifically points out a player's actions. That shadow demon that the wizard that's always a step ahead of the wizard that's causing trouble. The paladin that's hunting down an ancient fiend or something, and that fiend has been slaughtering their ancestors for the last 5 generations, and this PC absolutely wants to kill it. And then come to find out that the fiend was made real through the agony or the guilt or maybe some of the crimes committed by their ancestors. And this PC has been slowly sliding off of the moral and ethical train and is like, ooh, damn, I'm actually fueling this thing. Oops. Oops, going down the wrong path, murdering, I don't know, orc children or something because they're like, well, the monster manual says there'll be chaotic evil, right? That kind of thing, and going like, yeah, you're actually making this thing even more powerful, and reskinning, reflavoring some of these monsters, maybe going back to the troll, drawing the breath from children. Maybe trolls don't just heal biologically, maybe they heal from the evil acts done by the player characters themselves. Like, go ahead, keep murdering people. I'm just getting stronger. Mike Gould says, I have a half sea elf berserker concept. Oh, good. Came up. Anyway, who fears being a spawn of Sakula, the Sahuagin shark god, as a source of his rage, full of nightmares of blood and slaughter. I love that. I love that idea. I like the the reskinning. Like, yeah, sure, I'm a berserker barbarian or something, but maybe it's from it's like water boy, right? It's like, water sucks, no, get out of my mind. Yeah, I love it. I love that. I smell blood. Let me loose. Mm-mm-mm. Mike says, imagine a manticore that takes on the human face of the last person it ate. Ow, ow. Hey, maybe that manticore has the face of a PC and has been murdering things. And then eventually the PCs get to town and they're like, I've seen your face before. You've been chowing down on innocent victims here. Why? Wait, he's like, yeah, DBJ, Mike, Dead Man. Thank you all for the stimulating chat. Well worth getting up for. Good day to you all. Good day to you as well. Uh, Absolutely. Anyway, hopefully Wayne will see this, but if not, doesn't matter. True short story. Acquired artifact became neutral evil. Played it up. I remember artifacts changing people's alignments. Man, that was rough. Played it up. PC started hating. Decided I needed taken care of. Knowing this, my game became divide and conquer. Ended with PC's dead, me with all the loot. Yeah, player versus player stuff. Oof, oof. Alignment changes. Yeah. Oh, wow. Although, see now in fifth edition, we can get away with alignment changes because alignment really doesn't matter anymore. And between personality, ideals, bonds, and flaws, there's easy ways to change up characters' motivations and such. And what a strange way, maybe even a player character could acquire, especially a player that's really embraces it. Like they end up getting new ideas, bonds, flaws, or whatever from the enemies they fought to now have to go after them to acquire their old ones back again because they don't like the ones they have. Like they're literally, this is weird to say, they're gaming the system, but playing into the system that they're gaming. So maybe that attack by that scream from that banshee changes the character's flaw or something. And they're like, I hate this flaw. They play up the flaw, but they need to kill the banshee because it's like, I don't want this flaw anymore. How do I get rid of it? Or maybe they have to go on like a vision quest or something like that. But lastly, guys, I really love the idea of dreams and uh, nightmares spawning the enemies in the world, whether it's direct, literally a shadow demon comes out of the chest of the player characters and they have to fight them, or the opposite way, maybe something slower, more insidious. There could be, again, like bringing up Dead Man. Thank you there, Dead Man. Bring up Dead Man's point about the MacGuffin, like from the movie Sphere. Maybe there's a MacGuffin out there in the world, and like the Sphere or the monolith from 2001 or something. That's, hey, it's just causing people's nightmares to come out, or their greatest desires. Wonder Woman 84. Hey, man, they dropped the ball in that movie. I think it would have been awesome for Wonder Woman to have to fight other people's wishes directly, like a small child wish for a dinosaur or a giant robot. Wonder Woman has to lift, 50,000 tons of money that end up descending on someone's house because they wish for all the money in the world or something like that. Like, I think they dropped the ball, and it could have been a pretty wild, colorful, funny, sad state of affairs. But coming up with monsters and adversaries and NPCs, and hell, the I wish for all the money in the world could be a physical challenge to have for players to get around as gold starts pouring down from the sky and beating people in the head and destroying rooftops and damming up rivers and causing floods and knocking down castles as the gold and copper and silver keeps pouring down from the sky. And mind you, that's just one little thing. I don't know, a town ends up getting surrounded by a maze, like a rat's maze or something, or all kinds of weird nightmarish things could happen. And I like the idea. And I think there's a great way to not just use psychic monsters, but any monsters in your book, and link them to some of the desires, the fears, hell, even the classic seven virtues and sins and whatnot, and use it that way. But anyway, lastly, levelup5e.com. Check that out. I'm one of the contributing writers. Please check out all the work from all the the writers for this new concept of Advanced Fifth Edition. We're still working on the combat maneuvers for the martial classes. Essentially, martial maneuvers written as like spells for wizards, but these are all martial maneuvers, not just martial arts, but to bolster up that side of the game. Please check that out and answer the surveys if it's something you like or don't like. Anyway, guys, I have to get out of here. Thank you, all of you for just being here. I really appreciate it. Please stop by tomorrow and spread the word on Twitch, YouTube, whatnot. That I'm here. You guys are co-hosts, so that means if I'm here, you're here. So I really appreciate that as well. Guys, have a great one. I'll see you later.